Now it's time for Whispers, your number one source for all things paranormal, with your hosts Jordan Klein and Nick Queen, and produced by the lovely Lola Miller. Whispers is brought to you by West Virginia Penitentiary Tours at the West Virginia State Penitentiary in Moundsville. Unforgettable, historical, educational.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Whispers Radio on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. It is 6:10 p.m., and I couldn't tell you the degrees. I am live right now down at the Market House Bar and Grill in Elm Grove on Kruger Street. Come out and see me. They got a special going on while we're here. It's $1 domestics, $2 well drinks, bucket of beer, and a pound of wings for $10. That's going from 6 to 8:30, I believe. Come out and see me. Nick, Lola, you guys there?
Yes, we are, my dear.
You guys are awful quiet.
We were letting you do your thing.
Yeah.
Well, call us, 304-214-1600 if you're out of the area, 1-866-514-1600. Lola, I am so tired.
She's on the phone.
Oh, is she?
I told her you were tired. I told her, I was like, I'm hoping Jordan didn't fall asleep. She's like, he's not going to do that. And I'm like, you don't understand. They fed him. he takes a nap.
That's all I needed. Work, food, sleep.
Yeah, he'll just curl up there at the bar.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, I did start a new job this week. I am in the coal mine now. So today was my first day underground.
And.
Was it scary?
Let me tell you, at my first experience going through the tunnel.
Yeah.
Was holy crap.
Yeah.
And by 9:30 this morning, I was like, I'm out of here. I'm quitting.
Why? Because it was hard, or you just don't like being underground?
I wasn't sure how I was liking being underground, but I stuck it out. I'm sticking it out.
Well, I'm glad you're showing the intestinal fortitude to stick with this, but you know my feelings about you being underground. So.
Well, see, the mine itself, I'm working with a contractor that's working in a tunnel that's going from the prep plant to the river.
Okay.
And like the ceiling there is like 4 to 5 foot tall. So I'm like, my fat self is like bent over as far as I could forward, and then bent over to the right as far as I could just to see. Oh,
because I know I was talking to John's dad, Orville, and he worked in the mines for many, many, many years. Yeah. And I was saying, boy, I don't know if I could go underground. I get kind of claustrophobic. And they said, oh, it's big. The tunnels are really big, and the ceilings are pretty high. If I were in that position that you were in today, nope.
The mine itself, where they're in the slopes, where they're actually mining the coal, 7-foot ceilings, really wide. I mean, you can walk around freely. It's fine.
Yeah.
But not where you're working.
Not where I'm working.
Yeah.
I got to do my time there before I can get to the other side.
Oh, I see. Kind of like, okay, never mind. All righty. Well, our guest is on the phone already, so why don't you introduce Nikki and we'll get this ball rolling.
I can do that. Well, for 25 years, Paul Rademacher has been studying the intersection between consciousness, spirituality, and the Christian tradition. Worked 15 years in pastoral ministry, but then in 1997 attended for the first time the Monroe Institute, and continued as a student there until 2000. Now he's since October 2007, he's served as the executive director of the Monroe Institute. Paul, you with us?
Yes, I am. Nick.
Is it Monroe or Monroe?
It's Monroe.
Yeah,
Monroe?
That's what I thought.
I'm saying Monroe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's this accent down here. These people just don't know how to talk, Paul. That's all.
I do talk funny.
Paul, can you tell us what the Monroe Institute is?
Yes. What we do is we work with human consciousness. We help people to achieve altered states of consciousness and perception of spiritual perception and deep meditative states in a relatively quick period of time. What ordinarily would take people years and years of meditation to achieve, it seems as if our folks, when they go through the program, can achieve it in a matter of weeks.
How does that tie in exactly? Because you just came out with your new book, which is the Spiritual. Let me make sure I get the title right here.
Spiritual Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe. Travel
That's
tips for
correct.
the spiritually perplexed.
That's correct.
You know, I first
Which
saw
I probably fall into that category.
A lot of people seem to, that's for sure. Well, the way that this ties in for me is really what the book is all about. I came at this issue years ago, not by choice, but by accident, literally by accident. My brother and I had a construction company, and I was working up on the roof of a house one day and pulling on a board, and all of a sudden the board gave way, and I found myself careening off the roof without any opportunity to adjust for the fall. I hit the ground, and at the time I didn't know it, but I fractured my hip. The ambulance came, and they took me to the hospital, and they did some x-rays, and at first they didn't find anything wrong with the hip, but then and so they put me in physical therapy, which was excruciating. And I was doing so bad, the doctor came back after a while and said, we need to take another look at that hip. So they did so and found that it was fractured, took me out of physical therapy and put me into traction. And
yeah, which you should have been in all along.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so when the doctor told me I was going to be off work for quite a few weeks, and this was the busiest time of our season, I felt myself going into this spiral downward of pain and anxiety. Pain because the hip was excruciating, and anxiety because this is the busiest time of our year, and there was no way I could possibly be off work.
Yeah.
So I feel myself going downward, and all of a sudden I break through into another dimension or another reality entirely. And in that other world, the pain completely disappeared. The anxiety went away totally. I found myself surrounded by complete and utter and total peace. And I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that there are no such things as accidents. Everything had meaning and purpose and was just as it should be.
Oh, yeah.
And then at one point I found myself standing in front of a being of light, and we're conversing about my life, and yet we're not using words. And needless to say, it was a very life-altering experience for me because I hadn't been studying this kind of thing. I didn't even know something like that was possible. And so it really set me on a journey that it took me into the ministry because I was really thinking I wanted to reconnect with this world through the traditional church. And for 15 years I was in the ministry, but I began to realize that I had to go to other places to find out what this was all about. And so a number of years later, I ended up at the Monroe Institute, and that was where I reconnected with that world once again.
Now, going back into, you said you went into the ministry. Now, what kind of ministry were you in at the time, or had you been in before that?
No, I hadn't been in it before that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I was wrestling with the question though, because I had a sense of calling into the ministry.
Okay.
And then, it seemed like when I fell off the roof, that was kind of confirming that God's call was real. So I went off to Princeton Theological Seminary for 3 years and got a Master's of Divinity degree, and became a Presbyterian pastor for 15 years.
Okay.
Okay. Now, and what exactly? I mean, you went from that to somewhere else. What caused you to have this kind of disconnect? I guess you were still, not fulfilled in your walk, correct?
Yes, and part of the problem was that when you have an experience like that, and I want to emphasize experience as opposed to studying something or engaging in dogma or dialogue about it, but when you have the actual experience of it, it really changes your life. And for me, that experience was a kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it was such an amazing gift of grace. On the other hand, it was so difficult to connect with that again. And what made it more frustrating for me was I began to think that what Jesus was talking about when he would talk about the kingdom of heaven was exactly that kind of experience I had when I fell off of the roof, the ability to move between worlds. And I think that's really part of our birthright as human beings, that we have those capacities.
So do you think you had an out-of-body experience or a near-death experience?
Oh, excellent question. It has some of the earmarks of both, to be honest with you. At the time, I didn't think it was a near-death experience, but the more I've studied near-death experience, the more I realized that even though I wasn't even close to dying, it did have a lot of the same kinds of qualities to it that make me think that the near-death experience itself is not just one aspect of this other reality, but it can be achieved in a number of different ways. Just so happened that I fell off the roof and happened to get into it that way.
Now, I know in the book you talk about there's a distinction between infinity, and eternity. What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, the question that has been preoccupying most people in the church for a long time is this whole question of eternity. And that revolves around the issue of where are you going to end up when you die? Are you going to go to heaven or are you going to go to hell? And that seems to be the biggest question on everybody's mind. And so, the answer to that depends on what tradition you're a part of. If you are a fundamentalist, it means, have you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? If you're a Catholic, have you kept the sacraments of the church? If you're a liberal Presbyterian, have you helped the poor and that kind of thing? But for me, there's a bigger issue and a more important issue than that, and that's this question of infinity. Infinity has to do with this perception of worlds that go beyond ordinary reality. I'm really convinced that Jesus knew how to do this very well. He was always finding plenty of time for prayer and meditation and communicating between the worlds. But if you look at other people in the Bible, they did it repeatedly. And so I think that the time has come for us to begin to realize that ordinary people can begin to have these kinds of extraordinary perceptions as well.
Now, do you think, because you said we're talking to this being about your life and so forth. Now, this talk about going, I guess seeking the kingdom of heaven, as you will, or even the distinctions. Was that something that you discussed, or was it more of a kind of like a, this is your life and this is how you lived it till here, and kind of reassessing what you've done?
Well, it wasn't until much later that I began to put together that experience with the Kingdom of Heaven. But I have the sense, and the trouble is I can't really remember the conversation that well. It had more to do with, issues of destiny and, what you're going to achieve in this life and what your meaning and purpose is in this world. So, but it's that part of it is so, it's funny, the rest of the experience is very keenly pristine for me, but that particular part of it, for some reason, has dropped out, and I don't really remember very much about it.
Okay, now, I guess going into, you wouldn't exactly expect, somebody that's in, went to Presbyterian seminary or anything, to kind of have this kind of belief, because it seems more Eastern, I guess.
The Presbyterian Church, it's really traditional.
Yeah.
Yes, right. And therein was the problem.
I was going to say, did you share these beliefs with them, or I guess, as a sermon or anything like that, or?
Well, sometimes I did, but I did it in a pretty esoteric manner. When I was done preaching, and I'd be greeting people after the church service was over, people would say, "Oh, that was just the greatest sermon. That was really terrific." And my wife Jackie would lean over to me and she'd whisper in my ear and she'd say, "If they had any idea what you were really saying, you'd lose your job tomorrow." And really, that was a big issue for me because I had 3 children and a wife to support. And when you're a Presbyterian pastor, they do pretty much want you to be at least look normal or act normal, even if you're not. And so for me, there was a real push-pull around this whole issue. On the one hand, I had the job to do, and I had to keep up appearances for that. But on the other hand, there was this deep, almost burning hunger to want to get back to that world again and to understand it. So what I did was it was almost like living 2 separate lives, and there was the part of me that I presented to the church, and then there was the part of me that was deeply interested in going to all kinds of seminars and conferences that I would never tell anybody else about.
Now, like what kind of seminars? I mean, how quickly, first off, did you go into, I'm taking it you probably went into the Presbyterian, seminary. It probably came out of it and then started, really kind of feeling this isn't exactly what I was looking for. Is that kind of what happened? Make sure I'm getting my bearings.
But see, I'm a little slow on the uptake sometimes, and I knew that I wasn't very happy, but you're so busy in the ministry.
Yeah.
It's really, you don't have a lot of time sometimes to reflect, and it kind of took me 15 years to put everything together and finally decide that this is really not the life that I want to live, that for me there was something more compelling and more immediate that I needed to get to. And that's where the work at the Monroe Institute started coming into.
Okay, now what exactly did you start, I guess, what kind of seminars first off were you going to? I mean, if you don't mind naming a couple of names or something.
No problem at all. Yeah, for instance, for a while I was in a doctoral program up in Detroit, Michigan at a place called the Ecumenical Theological Center. And what we did there was really learn how to pray and meditate and began to see that as the basis for ministry itself. And the idea is that there is this deep spirituality that we can connect with if we will allow ourselves the time and the space to do it, and if we will focus on that and give that a really important part of our life. The problem that we run into in our society is that very few people are taught how to do that. Now, if you do live in an Eastern society or a Tibetan or even American Indian or South American shamanistic traditions, they all have space for that spiritual quest as a part of their lives. But in our society, we are so tied to the physical world that we don't even know there's other possibilities out there.
Now, do you think that's, Christianity itself is a very spiritual, if you go back to, especially the roots, it's spiritual much more so than it is today. A lot of today seems to be more of the trappings and the ritual and the, you have to do this, you can't do that kind of. Is that what was that what you were looking at more or less?
Yes. In fact, when you look at all of the religions, at their inception, there is a person or persons who have transcended the physical world in some manner or form. They've gone and had this spiritual adventure, and then they're faced with the task of trying to come back and tell people about it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is certainly true with the Christian tradition as well. And whenever you're in that position, one of the first things you find out is that the words can never capture the experience. And the reason for that is because our words and our language are tied to the physical world entirely. We don't have words for dimensions that go beyond the physical. And so when a person comes back and tries to tell others about the experience, that person knows that the words will never capture it. But the people who hear about the experience think that the words are actually it. And so they write the words down, and they write scripture, and they come up with all kinds of dogma for people to believe, and they never really understand that the essence is the experience itself, and that's what really drives the whole thing, and that's at the basis of all the religious traditions.
And that kind of goes to the aspect or the idea of being enlightened. Does that kind of sum up what you're looking at? You wanted to become enlightened to the idea, or is that even more simple than you would take it?
Well, of course, enlightenment is one of those words that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And at the time, I don't know that I would have used that word for it, but over time, as I reflect on these things and have experienced more and more through the years, I begin to think that there are aspects of enlightenment that impinge upon this whole thing. One of the real key aspects of enlightenment is this idea that underneath all the apparent separation between us and our separation from the world, there is this underlying unity that is all one. And this is, you hear this time and again. It doesn't matter what the tradition. That seems to be something that is commonly held. And I think that over the years I have more and more connected with that sense of oneness. And, of course, the work that we do in the Monroe Institute, which helps people to move beyond the physical limitations, it does help people to begin to ask questions about who they are and what their identity is all about. And inevitably, you come up against this idea that who we are in our separation is not real. Jesus would pray that his disciples would become one, just as he is one with the Father. And so he's kind of extending that invitation to oneness, and for people to wake up to that as a basis for what he was about.
Now, I guess going in, because my idea of being enlightened is that you had, and I see what you're saying with the become one, but you're also that you've become able to perceive. Like you said, it is a word that's kind of one of those pregnant words that could have so many different outcomes. Part of it's a direct, a personal experience that you have that opens your eyes. Another part of it is that you're kind of perceiving the world around you as it should be. Is that kind of where you were going towards?
That's certainly another aspect of it that I think is a very important part. And to me, there are two parts even to that aspect of it. One is to see this world in its wholeness and its unity, and the other is to perceive beyond this physical world other dimensions that can take you on marvelous adventures. Just to give you an example of what I was talking about in the first case, and this is kind of where the title of the book comes from.
Uh-huh.
Years ago, I was hitchhiking across the United States, and I ended up in Big Sur, California. I'd been just dropped off by a trucker who was one of the original Hells Angels, and we just had a great ride together. And I was feeling kind of sad when I watched the truck go away, and the sun was starting to set, and it gets cold pretty fast in that part of California. And then all at once, it seemed as if the world around me shifted entirely in my perception of it. It seemed as if there was a spiritual essence that was radiating from the redwoods, and that I was surrounded again by this incredible peace. And here I was, oddly enough, in one of the most vulnerable situations I've ever been, because you can't get much more vulnerable than hitchhiking.
Yeah.
And yet I felt completely safe in every possible way. It was the safest I've ever felt in my life, which is, again, such an irony considering the situation. So that's an example of how this physical world can sort of morph in our perceptions. And then, of course, the experience when I fell off the roof is perceiving beyond the physical world in a different way.
Okay. Now, you talk a lot about mystical experience, and you seem to kind of center on that a lot. What do you mean? What do you see that as such a priority in our lives?
Well, we live in a culture that really doesn't have much space for the spiritual world, and we don't really even know that it's missing because it seems to be a part of the air that we breathe. We are dominated by the scientific worldview, which tells us that there's really nothing to more than meets the five physical senses. And so we don't really have a science that can explore the metaphysical or the non-physical world. And yet, we as human beings have been crafted in such a way that we are able to perceive these kinds of things, even though our culture doesn't admit it or encourage it. And so we're not really living complete lives, though we don't really realize it. So that's why I think the mystical experience is something that opens us up to this more complete way of being that we have almost denied completely in our culture. But for me, there's an even greater reason why the mystical experience is crucial to our time. It's been said that if you were to bring together a Jew, a Hebrew and a Christian and a Hindu and anybody else from any number of different traditions, they would all really start to argue without ceasing about all their different perspectives. But if you were to bring together a mystic from each of those traditions, they would find essential agreement about what they're talking about. And we all know that there have been an incredible number of wars that have been fought because people have been fighting about their religious beliefs. And I think the mystical tradition is one way where we can begin to focus on our commonalities rather than the things that separate us. And I think that's what really holds the key for peace in the future.
So I know a lot of times people say that the reason we're not spiritual as much as we used to is because we so focus on gaining I guess the next dollar. I mean, I was talking to someone the other day. It's like, well, I'd be truly happy if I was making doing this and doing this and making this enough money to be able to pay my bills. And no, you've got to, as soon as you make 30,000 you want 31,000. As soon as you make 31 you want 32. And I mean, just the number kept going up, and I'm thinking, is that exact, is that, I even asked, is that all it is? And oh, of course it is. That's all there is, and then you leave it to your kids, and then they do it. And I'm thinking, that's kind of, I hate to say it, but that really sucks. I mean, it's a horrible way of thinking, because when now when are you truly happy? And you're never happy. So I mean, is that kind of what you're talking about?
I agree. I
Okay.
think you've hit it right on the nail right on the head, because we have been wrapped up so much in the economic aspect of this life, and to the detriment of everything else that is spiritual and emotional and relational. All the things that truly add meaning and wonder and joy to this life, we tend to neglect in pursuit of the next dollar. And again, because it's such a part of our whole culture, it's like the water that we swim in. And so people don't even recognize the loss in their lives until they have an experience that puts this life in a completely different perspective. And a lot of times that can actually be a tragedy that comes upon us, or the loss of a loved one, or the loss of a job. Sometimes these things that we want to avoid at all costs can actually be the thing that opens us up to new possibilities that we would have never dreamed of before if we hadn't had it.
All right, well, we need to take a quick break.
Okay.
We'll be right back with Paul Rademacher. Hopefully I'm saying your name right, but
Close enough.
great. Well, you're listening to WKKX and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. We'll be right back.
And now back to Whispers, brought to you by West Virginia Penitentiary Tours.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Whispers Radio on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. It is 6:40 p.m. Still don't know the degrees. Maybe I was.
It's about 57, 58, I think, but it's awfully windy.
Yeah.
And that wind's got a bite to it, yeah.
So that's the degrees there in downtown Wheeling. I'm over here at the Market House Bar and Grill in Elm Grove on Kruger Street. Come out and see me while there's time to see me. 6 to 8. I know, right?
Yeah.
Has anybody stopped by to see you yet?
Actually, there's two people here listening to EVP.
Ooh.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Now, is this of you? I mean, were they beside you recording you? And
they're recording the show, and they're saying, "Ooh, listen, I heard a voice."
Okay.
George's like, that's mine.
Yes. Paul, are you still with us?
I am here, and I'm laughing.
Yeah,
we can be mildly amusing at times. We've been told.
Yeah, Jordan's not in the studio with us. He's actually at a bar. At a bar. Yeah, I was going to say bar and grill. He's at a bar. Yeah. We can't get him away from now.
I know it. But at least we always know where to find him.
He's looking for spirits, he said. I don't know.
Yeah.
They can only pry me away from the bar half the time to do the show.
There you go.
So we just send him out with the phone.
If you can't beat him, join him. That's why we sent him there with the remote equipment.
Oh, boy. All right, well, let's get back into this. Now, is there anything, first off, I'm trying to make sure we cover everything with the book. Because it seems like, it seems a very personal, it's more of a memoir than, how to, gain this enlightenment. Would that be a fair assessment, or?
Right. What I'm trying to do in the book is to hold out the possibility for people that they may not have considered before.
Uh-huh.
And the how-to is something that can be done if you come to the Monroe Institute or begin to go on a spiritual journey that makes sense for you.
Yeah, and see, now Jordan and I, myself, we're both Christians. We both go to, I don't even, it doesn't even have a denomination.
Yeah, it's called non-denominational.
Okay, good. So
Pentecostal.
I was trying to think, I was about to say denomination, like I don't know what the denomination, but and to some degree, I can understand where you're coming from, because it's like I've been in churches before where it seemed like everybody was going through the motions, and it was more of a get together place. And I'm thinking, I can get together somewhere else. I mean, it's, but it seemed like you were there to, go out to eat afterwards, and that was almost the plan. Was like, well, we'll go to church, but then we're gonna go. It's like, well, the church should be the part where you're going to seek your God. It's not to get together to go to the KFC afterwards. But
Judgmental, Nick.
I am a judgmental person. But you know what I'm saying, though. I think.
No, Nick, I never did that.
Oh, not you, but all right. But it's and at the same time, you say you have you had this career as a pastor, and now you've kind of, I don't want to say you went away from it, but you've decided to go, more of a spiritual route. Is there any connection at all between the two, or is it very extreme, one extreme to the other?
Well, again, I think the first connection is we've already talked about, which
Sure.
is that at the beginning of every tradition is the mystical experience. That's what
Mm-hmm.
births these things in the first place. Is that people move into another dimension, and then they got to come back and try and talk about it. For me, I think that when the church at its best is kind of a spiritual community. When you've got people who really practice love and care for each other, that's a pretty unusual thing in this world, and that's when I think the church is at its best. Unfortunately, a lot of times churches get pretty judgmental, and that seems to work its way into the congregation to some extent. I never had that experience in the churches that I was dealing with. For some reason, they were just beautiful, wonderful, loving people. So I have a real appreciation for that aspect of it.
And I don't want to say that the church I'm going to, I'm talking about other,
Right.
churches in the past. And I know I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that that's what I was talking about. So.
Butt off the
Well,
hook
now-
now and just defend the people you used to go to church with.
Those people aren't even around here. So.
Because my dad's the pastor there, and he'll get him.
Yeah, and that guy's my uncle, so I got to be careful.
Boy, you better watch. You better cover your tracks big time.
Christmas is going to be very, very, very weird. Yes.
So for me, the key here is that when you look at the biblical tradition and you look at the stories there, ask yourself a question. Are the things that you're reading there, are they possible for us now? If you're looking at Moses in the burning bush, and he had an experience when he saw the spiritual essence kind of coming out of this bush, well, that's a transcendent experience. Or Ezekiel when he has this incredible vision of a wheel within a wheel. Or Paul on the road to Damascus when he sees this guy who was dead a long time ago, Jesus of Nazareth, all of a sudden appears to him. Are these things possible for us today? I think they are. I don't think that they died with the folks that died back in the biblical times. So for me, that's the real connecting point. The Bible is kind of showing us what the possibilities are for the human condition, and I think that's what Jesus was about too. He wanted to demonstrate for everybody what is possible. He said, "These things that I do, you will do and more." And so for me, that's another really big connecting point as well. A difference, however, I think between what I'm doing now and what I was doing in the church is that at the Monroe Institute, we don't have any dogma. We just want to create a context where people can explore for themselves, and then they can come back and tell us what they've explored and what they've found out in the process. If there is one piece of dogma that we do ask people to consider, though, it is the possibility that they might be more than their physical bodies. And we don't try to tell them what that more is. We just say, go out and find out for yourself. Here's some tools for you to do that, and go out and have some fun.
Okay. Now, a lot of, when you start going down this kind of a journey, I mean, you talked about it before, you were concerned about, providing for your family and so forth.
Right.
But now also at the same time, if you're, going through this, life-changing experience, and there's no other way to describe it, that brings you to where you are now. How exactly did that impact them?
My family, you mean?
Yes, your family. I mean, were they resistant to it, or?
Well, I think that my wife, Jackie, at first was somewhat resistant to it because, when I came back, first of all, the experience I had when I fell off the roof, she really kind of had understood that very clearly. And because of that and some other things that happened, when I had the sense of calling into the ministry, she said, "Hey, let's go. This is great."
Mm-hmm.
But then when it started to lead beyond sort of the outlines of the tradition, she was pretty nervous about that for a while until she started having some of her own experiences. And then after that, it was like you couldn't hold her back. She's been so enthusiastic about it and so supportive. And my kids, too, have been they're all grown up now, but they're all telling their friends about the book. And my daughter has been to the Monroe Institute, and my daughter-in-law has also been to the Monroe Institute at this point. So from my immediate family, I get tremendous support.
I have to ask because just where I'm at, I can't hear everything too well right now. So if this was already asked or explained, I apologize, but I didn't catch it. where exactly do you stand? Like, do you believe Christianity? Do you take Christianity and turn it into like a humanistic, like instead of God doing it, you can do it yourself type of belief? How do you perceive that?
Well, it's a good question, and I think that the thing that a lot of people don't understand is that within the Christian tradition itself, there are many, many different ways of understanding it, and unfortunately, the what gets preached to most loudly, it tends to be one form of Christianity, and people think that that's the only way to approach it. So, but I come from having studied this. I know that there are many different perspectives on it. And my personal perspective is that Jesus was clearly a mystic, and he was talking about the kingdom of heaven as something that is a present reality. He would say things like, the kingdom of heaven is at hand, or the kingdom of heaven is among you, or some of you will not taste death before you see the kingdom of heaven coming in all of its glory.
Okay, now can you explain, just to break down, what a mystic is?
Okay. A mystic is somebody who has the ability or has had the experience of moving beyond the normal ranges of human perception. In other words, beyond the five physical senses. And those kinds of encounters can take many, many different forms. And as I was saying before, in the biblical tradition, you have many, many examples of them there. So that's where I'm coming at this thing from, is that when Jesus would talk about the kingdom of heaven, he was talking about something that was a present reality, not something that happens to us after we die. So if it is a present reality, then how do we begin to deal with that? And how do we begin to incorporate that into our lives and make it an actual part of who we are and what we're about? That's where what I'm trying to do in this book, and that's what we try to do in this work of spirituality.
Oh, I do have to ask you this, and this might be totally off the wall, so I do apologize, and you don't have to answer it if it is.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I know Jordan has really expressed an interest in the subject of astral projection. Now, and you've also, and see, he knows, and it, you also talking about, being able to go between, to the other dimensions or so forth. Do you think that is a way of, of traveling, I guess, to some degree, between the two, or you're even out of your body to some extent?
It can be. There are many different ways, and the astral projection has been something that's got quite a bit of publicity in our culture as of late, and we call it out-of-body experience at the Monroe Institute.
Uh-huh.
And we always think that these things are just so fabulous and esoteric, but we really think that every night when you go to sleep, you actually leave your body. So it's not as if this is something entirely unusual. It's something you do all the time.
So sleeping is like astral projection?
Well, you leave your physical body, and when you sleep. Now the question is, do you realize it, and can you remember it when you come back to wake up, or can you know that you're doing it while you're in the midst of it?
See, that's kind of funny because the guest before we came on, Steve Novotny, he was I came in to talk to him during one of the breaks, and he said, it's getting sad when I'm starting to work while I'm not even working. He said, I started dreaming last night about doing, like researching for the show. And
Right.
I was like, well, that is kind of sad. You can't even get away from work, while you're trying to sleep, so that's, so somehow he was out of his body, perhaps, researching for the show. So if he's listening, he's probably going, wow, that's, but I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, but I think you bring up a good point, though. When we're talking about out of body stuff, actually we go out of our body all the time, even in the course of a normal day. Have you ever had the experience of driving down the road in a highway, and suddenly you wake up and you realize you've traveled 60 miles and you have no idea what has transpired over that 60-mile period, and you're not really there. You are to some degree, but a large portion of you is actually focused in another world or another dimension. Maybe you're thinking about something that's happened to you in the past, or you're projecting about something that's going to happen to you in the future, but you're really not present at that point in time. So we do this all the time, and it's really a question of a matter of degree. Are you fully out of your body, or are you partially out of your body? It's a very normal human function.
Huh. I've had that experience before. My roommate actually was telling me once that he would drive to he lives here. Of course, we're in the northern panhandle of West Virginia, and he would travel to the middle of Pennsylvania to a friend's house, and he loves listening to techno kind of music and kind of the I don't want to say new age, but kind of that way. I can't remember what he calls it, ambient or something. Well, he said he ended up driving, and without even realizing it, 60 miles past his destination on the interstate. He's listening to his music and he's thinking of stuff, and all of a sudden he realizes I'm almost to Philadelphia, and he's like, he had to turn around, and he was almost out of gas, and so I can see that kind of, because your mind's working, and I can see where you're coming from there.
Yeah, and when we turn on the television and switch channels, we can move from one reality to another. In fact, all of those dimensions are a part of our experience. Those television waves are going through our bodies all the time, and it's just a matter of where you want to focus in, where you want to tune the channel to. And we have that same capacity as human beings to change the channel and begin to focus in on a variety of different things, far greater than we have been led to believe.
Now, is there anything you could, if somebody decides, they want to try to, focus to use this as more of a tool to help them in whatever aspect, is there something that they can do, even just at home to start getting kind of focused on this a little bit? And we're almost out of time, but I know that's a big question to ask. But
does the Monroe Institute have an online study course?
We don't have an online study course yet, but we do have a study course that's available for you to do at home. It's a series of CDs that it's called the Gateway Experience that helps people to begin to move into these initial states. Like, for instance, the first state that we help people to explore is what we call the mind awake, body asleep state. If you've ever noticed when you just are beginning to fall asleep or just waking up in the morning, there's that sort of in-between sense. If you're waking up, you're feeling really deeply relaxed, and yet you're not fully awake. That's a doorway for you to begin to explore that. So in the home study course, we look at, that's what we call Focus 10, the mind awake, body asleep, and then also Focus 12, which is the state of expanded awareness, and Focus 15, which is the state beyond time and space. Those are just a few.
All right, well, great. Well, we do have up on our website a link to your book for those that are interested. The name of the book again is the Spiritual Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe. And I keep on wanting to say, and I'm so sorry, but Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I know.
One of my favorite books, and I have to stop myself every time.
You have to blame the publisher on that.
Okay, I will do that. Spiritual Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, travel tips for the spiritually perplexed. Also, we have links up to your website and to the Monroe Institute's website there for those interested. But it's been a pleasure talking with you, Paul.
Yeah, very much.
We'll have to have you back on maybe to get into some other subjects. I'm sure you've got all different types of things you can talk about. So.
Well, maybe next time we can meet at the bar.
All right.
And Jordan's there.
That way I can have some company.
Yeah.
All right,
yes.
Jordan. You take care.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much. What do you think?
Oh, I find that fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Oh, it's kind of a different, I guess, perspective to say, instead of being a leader of a religion, that Jesus was a mystic, trying to teach people their inner peace and sanctity.
He didn't, when Christ was on the earth, he was not about starting a new religion.
Oh, yeah.
I know. And so, that's something that humans came up with after quite a while. So yeah, for him to be considered a mystic would be far more appropriate.
That doesn't even take away whether or not he's the son of God or so forth. I mean, he was, he wasn't necessarily about being, what's the term I'm trying to look for? Materialistic, about being, he was very much focused on, the things, of not of this world to some extent. And that's exactly what a mystic is. So.
I guess the terminology is what's kind of.
Yeah. Well, I think when we think of a mystic, a lot of people start focusing on
I think
a shaman kind of thing.
I think Merlin when I think of a mystic.
Oh, I don't. I think of cute King Arthur, but That's just me.
I mean,
No, I honestly, when I think of Merlin, I think of wizards and magical things, and a mystic to me is well, like a Tibetan monk, or
Okay.
The Indian sitting there with his sitar. That's kind of mystical to
Just
me.
in a deeper place.
Yeah.
well, I mean, it says here, and just to get more to the definition, mysticism, mystic would be part of the pursuit of communion with, identity with, or conscious awareness of an ultimate reality, divinity, spiritual truth, or God through direct experience, intuition, instinct, or insight.
Okay.
So, I mean, you got to get rid of all the stereotypes.
Yeah, and see, and that's
Dogma.
my problem.
It is, and it is.
Because every time he said, Jesus is a mystic, a guy in a blue robe with stars on it, popped up in my brain. I'm like,
You're thinking magician.
Yeah.
That's not my
Jesus is there pulling out a
Wrong
rabbit.
consonants. Wrong consonants. All right, well, we've got to take a break, Jordan. So,
all right, time for
just,
CNN News.
yeah.
You're listening to Whispers Radio on AM 1600 WKK, Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. We'll be right back.
Now it's time for Whispers, your number one source for all things paranormal, with your hosts, Jordan Klein and Nick Queen, and produced by the lovely Lola Miller. Whispers is brought to you by West Virginia Penitentiary Tours at the West Virginia State Penitentiary in Moundsville. Unforgettable, historical, educational.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Whispers Radio here on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. It is 7:09 p.m. here at the Market House Bar and Grill down on Kruger Street in Elm Grove. Come out and see me. There's only an hour left to see Jordan Klein at the Market House. And to sweeten the deal, there is $1 domestics, $2 well drinks, a bucket of beer, and a pound of wings for $10. Who could pass that up? I don't know of anybody either.
So, you're really playing up this seeing you. Has anybody came to see you yet?
Well, nobody would come here to see you.
And I'm not here. And nobody wants to see me anyways. I'll lay that out right now.
Well, I was thinking, all the hate mail that I get, maybe people would want to drop it off in person.
You don't want to. You don't want firebombing. So you got yours coming for you.
I'm gonna get mine.
Well, when we've talked about this before, many times, nobody sends me hate mail, and Jordan gets like enough to make up for both me and Lola. Lola gets nothing but love mail, so she gets all of the love mail. Jordan gets all the hate mail, and I get all of the. I want to be on the show, and here's why, which I like because I got to book people, but nobody ever sends me hate or love mail. Nobody sends Jordan love mail either, though.
Nikki's feeling lonely out there.
I am, but Jordan's still trying to figure out why why did he get so much hate mail?
I think I figured it out. It's
Okay.
Because when we talk to guests half the time and they sit and have a conversation with me, they go, "Okay, Nick." So I think.
Oh, everything offensive is getting blamed on you. However, it's actually coming out of Nick's mouth.
Yeah.
I got it.
But I can back this up that it's always Jordan because they always quote him.
Yeah,
and then Jordan's like, "Well, that wasn't me." I was like, "I got the evidence right here. I recorded."
They always
He's like, "Oh."
the jerks.
Well, you guys, our next guest is on the phone, and it is Robert Bob Mike.
Hi, Nikki.
All right. Well, Robert Collins spent 22 years in the Air Force, serving in the field of avionics, ground communications, engineering, physics, and intelligence. He was an Air Force intelligence officer, and we're going to be talking about his book, a little bit exempt from disclosure. Robert, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, great. Now, and we're going to be talking about your book a little bit too, but it kind of going into what happened. I think a couple of days ago. I've kind of lost track of the actual when this came out. But Stephen Hawking is going to be in a new documentary on the Discovery Channel, and he kind of said something that a lot of people. It seems everywhere I've been going, they keep on talking about it. You've got some people going, well, that can't be true, and it said something about if it'd be dangerous to talk to aliens, and I'm looking for his exact quote. I had it here, and I just closed the page. But
Well, actually, I read the article last night, and he says it's one thing if you're like listening to the radio and you pick up a DJ you like. The DJ doesn't know you're listening. But if you're broadcasting too and he can pick you up, that's when something bad could happen because they now know you're there and they can be hostile. That's kind of his view.
And that makes perfect sense.
And he says it's not it wouldn't be a large stretch of the imagination or science, to say that there's life, out in the universe and how vast it is, and he is like the universe guy.
So, Robert, what exactly, coming from your background, look at, working in the UFO field for as many years as you have, what do you take of this? I mean,
Well, Stephen Hawking is a very brilliant, great guy, and I like him. I like what he does. I like his science. I like his math. From all the reading I've done. But like anything else, nobody knows everything. Smartest person in the world doesn't know everything.
mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know how much background Stephen has or how much investigations he's done, say, on UFOs. I really don't know where he's coming from when he says that. But obviously, from everything I know, the U.S. government's been in contact with these things since just after Roswell in 1947. I guess starting with EB1. So I guess it's hard to fathom what he means. Not all aliens are hostile, and it's not going to rock the boat or upset civilization. So I have a hard time, as I said before, understanding where he's coming from at times.
But I know one of the quotes, from the article that stuck with me, and I've been thinking about it all day. He says, if aliens ever visit us, I think the outcome would be much as when Christopher Columbus first landed in America, which didn't turn out very well for the Native Americans. Now, of course, there's several different reasons why that didn't work out well. I mean, number one, of course, they really had no respect for, who was there. But even past that, well, yeah, they killed them. But, it was not necessarily direct killing as much as, they brought disease. And that wiped them out as well as the fact that they shot them and took their land and everything else. Now, and do you think he's coming at it from the fact that if they come, they're going to be coming looking for a specific, we need resources, and hey, look, there's a blue planet. Let's take the resources from there.
Well, maybe he's watched too many sci-fi movies. The latest one was Independence Day with that theme or something.
Uh-huh. And they're coming out with two more of those, so.
Or War of the Worlds was the other one, the recent hostile, aggressive attitude towards aliens. So Spielberg moved from E.T. to War of the Worlds. I don't know how he did that, but he made that big switch. So I guess they made up their minds that aliens are not friendly, they're hostile. But actually, the way I've seen it come around is that you get both types. You get the friendly ones and you get the hostile ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get the ones that are doing all the abductions, and nobody knows quite who or which group is doing that.
And I think I'm on I'm on several different places, and it seemed like at first everybody was kind of tongue in cheek talking about it as like, it's kind of a funny, a little too late for that, Stephen Hawking, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, they've been coming and abducting us for years, and they're doing this. Of course they're hostile, but nobody's, looking at it as, nobody wants to acknowledge the fact that it's happening. And it seems also that a lot of people either are one of the extremes or the other. They either think all of them are hostile, or, the kind of the contactee thing. They're coming here to help us, transcend the earth and our beings, and, whatever we go from there.
Well,
not to be condescending.
Sure, right. But the way I guess I look at it is that, they're not. They're if they're abducting people, they're taking them back and putting them back where they got them.
Uh-huh.
So maybe the abductees don't like the horrors or uncomforts or discomforts of having them probed and prodded to their bodies and do different things to them. But as far as I know, very, very few people have died from abduction experiences, but most of them don't like it.
Yeah. Now, I guess one of the questions that always comes to my mind is, what exactly does he kind of tip his hand at all, thinking, just sort of tongue in cheek, they're out there. He admits that they're out there. He doesn't admit that they're coming here, that they're here. And I think you said you don't know whether or not he believes anything about that. But what do you think he, do you think he would know?
I think he is an alien.
Unless somebody that he knew that was inside the government told him. Of course, I don't know the answer to that one either. I just don't know where he's coming from or why he would say things like this. Stefan doesn't talk to me, and I certainly wouldn't have a need to talk to him. So, again, I have no idea where he's coming from.
Okay. Now, I guess going away from that a little bit, how do you perceive why they're here? What do you think they're here looking for?
Well, they obviously they're here. They want something, or they wouldn't be here.
Okay. Now, and you also, there's several different ones that are, that are visiting us. Do you think they have different motives? Such as abductees. Do you think that they're going more of as a kind of a study, longitudinal study, perhaps? Because I do know they take generations. But what do you think that their purpose is or motive, I guess?
Well, again, it depends on the alien group, but it seems like the most orchestrated, consistent abductions occur with the so-called group of Greys.
Uh-huh.
And you hear sometimes abductions with the so-called reptoids or tall blondes or these manus type aliens here and there, but most of the orchestrated abductions seem to be taking place with what everybody terms these little Greys or short little 3'4" or however they vary in height a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I understand you're saying that they're, but you don't believe that there's any exact purpose, or do you think that you just don't know exactly?
Well,
it could
again,
be
it's what I get told, and a lot of times, you can garner a lot of information from the abductees.
Okay.
But you got to be careful which ones you listen to, because some of them just make up the story. They seem to have an orchestrated, planned, scientifically based effort to study humans.
Okay.
And to study every aspect of human biology and behavior, and go back repeatedly to check on the people that they have targeted for repeated examinations and specimen samples, taking specimen samples from them. And it's a very consistent, orchestrated, scientific approach from what I can see.
Do you think it could have something to do with, since they do have the ability to get here, and if they seem to share some of our traits, and I really don't believe that they're like shapeshifters or anything, that it's more of, just to put it in general terms, an archaeological experiment where they're trying to get back to or find out what their origins were?
Would you clarify when you say origins? What do you mean by that?
Well, ancestral, say. I don't know if they have the same. That we seem to have the same types of body characteristics, at least on the surface, and I don't know what their internal organs might look like, but could it be that they are trying to discover maybe keys to their I can't think
like
of it.
We're really, really distant relatives.
Yeah, and like we go back, and dig up fossils and things like that. Well, they're checking and keeping an eye on us because I don't know, maybe they think that in some way, like Jordan said, that was somehow we're sort of related, and to kind of go back into their history, so to speak. And
yeah, in a way, but I personally think that if you look at human genetics, there's nothing in the human genome that even suggests anything that might be alien, and you can't point to the junk DNA because the junk DNA seems to run the active DNA. In other words, the junk DNA seems to drive evolution in the active DNA. So, but my theory is you'll probably find more human DNA in those aliens than you would find alien DNA in humans.
well, and that's what I'm thinking is that perhaps somehow they did,
We're connected somehow.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of just like there's been a lot of or appears to be a lot of crossbreeding going on. Like when humans migrate from one point on the planet to another ethnic or racial group, they intermingle and then there's crossbreeding taking place.
Right.
Well, that's the same theory that comes when these aliens come here. It seems like there's been some crossbreeding going on, and the fact that we didn't really come from aliens so much so to speak, but aliens seem to be more human than we seem to be alien.
Now, is that because I've read before different people saying that the reason they're more doing this kind of interbreeding is because they lack something. Perhaps they've been genetically engineered to a point where now they're starting to, I don't want to say, well, might as well, become defective to some degree, biologically, and that by crossbreeding, and like you said, the junk DNA causes, brings forth evolution, that they're trying to strengthen their stock, I guess,
pool.
or gene pool.
Yeah, you read that email, didn't you?
I don't remember. I read so much stuff these days, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's just like the analogy to that is you've got a family of cousins and aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters, and say they're isolated, and so they start reproducing amongst themselves. And if you keep that up generation after generation, sooner or later, a lot of those descendants or those grandkids are going to start having genetic diseases.
Well, yeah, the royals in Europe.
Because of the genome becomes so homogenized that it weakens the genetic characteristics of the offspring.
Yeah,
and
isn't
this
that
is exactly in an advanced civilization, an alien civilization that's, say, tens of thousands or millions and millions of years ahead of humans. Think about that homogenation process on that planet amongst those aliens, on that planet amongst their species. And someday this is going to happen to the human race, too. That at some point, everything, the racial mixing amongst, say, the different ethnic groups is actually reinforces the DNA. But after you do that generation after generation after generation, everything starts becoming homogeneous.
Yeah.
And so eventually what happens is the DNA starts getting weaker. And each succeeding generation of offsprings is genetically defective because they don't have those genes from another genetic pool that will strengthen their own genetic pool.
Well, they've already done that with certain breeds of dogs and horses, where they just interbreed so much that they start having all kinds of physical and mental problems.
Or even past that, though, on the flip side, though, of course, in simple, I guess, but they would also breed dogs for certain purposes, for hunting rabbit because they're low to the ground, and or to catch a scent because they're they have the biological.
But unless you find another genetic pool to interbreed with that dog and strengthen it, don't interbreed with its own set of own relatives or own family dogs there, because if you don't find another genetic pool for your breeding, eventually, what she just said, the genetic pool will gradually weaken over time.
Yeah, and they get bad hips and all kinds of other pit bulls.
Then they grow big heads, lose their nose and lips.
And this is exactly what these aliens are up against. From what I understand, is that they're technologically so advanced, but they can't fix their own problems.
Now, I guess to play devil's advocate, why us? I mean, you said earlier, there's more than one. There's some hostile ones. There's some, ones that are more peaceful. Why come to Earth? I mean, other than the fact that we're probably more seen as cattle, I guess, than anything else, and a little more defenseless. But why not maybe look out, in somewhere else in the universe? I mean,
well, if you were cattle, they'd slaughter you and eat you.
Well, okay, I give you that, but I'm thinking more of the.
So we're a couple stages above cattle.
Okay, sure.
Well, maybe we are not the most. If we're not as technologically advanced as some other civilizations, then, like you said, we would not have the defenses against.
Well, we don't have all those genetic diseases either.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
We don't have the races on this planet are so mixed, and they continue to mix all the time, that it kind of reinforces the genetic code. But 1,000, 10,000 years from now, what happens to that genetic code?
Yeah.
See, now we're starting to get to the point where I've been reading these articles coming out, that these scientists are looking at two different ones that are leaping out of my mind. First off, that males are starting to have less sperm production, and the sperm itself is becoming weaker. They even start the article saying, if Martians were doing a study on humans, they would say that that we're heading towards extinction because we're not able to produce sperm, which is necessary to for fertilization of the eggs. The
Sure.
other one talking about how now we're getting to the point where we're starting to mess with the creating life itself, where now we're able to take two women and a man and mix those to make one baby. So you're getting genetic material from all three to fertilize the egg. And I'm not sure exactly where they're getting that from or how they're doing that, but are we starting to do the same thing? Maybe.
Well, I mean, if people stay amongst their own little groups, yeah, that'll happen eventually, a lot quicker.
Sure.
A lot quicker if you stay in your own social groups and own your own social cliques, and don't bother getting amongst other people. Sure, that kind of homogenization will be a lot faster.
Now, but do you think also?
In fact, it'll go back to the blood relatives again. In Kentucky and other places where they live in the mountains and the remote, isolated areas,
Wrong turn.
They run into a lot of problems with genetic diseases.
Yeah, they do.
No.
It's because they don't get outside their own group, and the only way to strengthen the DNA or genetic codes is to fall in love with somebody who's completely opposite and way off on the other side of the globe than you are.
Yeah, see now, Jordan, who's still single, is trying to look for somebody. Jordan should take this to heart.
I go to China. China's a good place.
I would love any Chinese ladies out there. Please.
Wow.
Robert, I'm
China,
sorry.
But China,
I'm sorry you had
China
to.
China has a big genetic base, though.
Yeah.
And they finally they're moving away from the one-child rule, so you might have hope, Jordan. Well, on that, I'm going to go ahead and take a break before we go down that a little bit too far, Robert. If you'll just bear with us for a second, go pay some bills. But you're listening to Whispers Radio on AM 1600 WKKX and the UPRN UFO Paranormal Radio Network. If you have a question, give us a call, 1-866-514-1600, or if you're local, 304-214-1600. We'll be right back.
Okay, go ahead and pick your category.
Yes, Alex, I'll take what has a small head and a big ego for $500.
This morning talk show host has the best morning show in the Ohio Valley and is on from 6 to 10, only on AM 1600 WKKX.
Who is Mother Love?
That is correct. Catch a whole lot of love only on The Dog with John Blackmore and Biff Leonard. Every day at 6, only on AM 1600 WKKX.
Bud Light presents Real Men of Genius.
Real men of genius.
Today we salute you, Mr. T-shirt launcher inventor.
Mr. T-shirt launcher inventor.
Not satisfied with standard souvenir distribution, you created a device with enough kick to dislocate a mascot's shoulder.
Someone get a stretcher.
Courtside, luxury box, upper deck. Your high-powered cotton cannon makes every section the nosebleed section.
Hit the deck.
So simple, anyone can operate it. After a background check, a training course, and a 5-day waiting period.
It only shoots T-shirts.
So crack open an ice-cold Bud Light, marksman of the mezzanine, because we know you'll give us the shirt off your back at 180 feet per second.
Mr. T-shirt launcher inventor.
Bud Light beer, Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh!
One show, 2 women, thousands of fantasies being fulfilled every day. Listen to the hottest show in the valley, The Broadcast, weekdays 10 to noon, only on AM 1600 WKKX.
It was just a small Saturday night radio program in 1933, but it's made country music history over the years in Wheeling, West Virginia, and continues today. Listen to one of the nation's oldest broadcasts right here on WKKX. It's the Wheeling Jamboree.
Want to talk politics? Well, turn your dial no further. Here at WKKX AM 1600, we got the dogs with the suit and ties. Tune in every Wednesday from 9 to 10:30 to hear Rocky, Brett, Fuzz, and the big dog debate, legislate, and set the record straight. AM 1600, the Valley's legislative watchdog. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of WKKX. With local issues, local people, and local hosts, we're starting our own talk radio revolution. One listener at a time. WKKX, the Valley's watchdog. Give us a call and tell us what you're thinking. Locally, 304-214-1600. Out of the area, toll free, 866-514-1600. And now back to Whispers, brought to you by West Virginia Penitentiary Tours.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Whispers Radio on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. It is 7:35 p.m., 53 or 4 degrees. It's getting a little chilly.
It's really windy. Windy.
Windy, chilly. They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Give us a call, 304-214-1600. If you're out of the area, 1-866-514-1600. That's toll free. Come on out to the Market House Bar and Grill. $1 domestics, $2 well drinks, bucket of beer, and a bucket of beer and a pound of wings for $10. Don't miss it. We're only here for another 30 minutes. So you're missing out if you don't come. Okay,
I was muted. I'm sorry. I was talking, but it wasn't working. Now
that's my girl, Lola.
That one I did not do.
No, I have my own button. That makes it even worse. All right, going back a little bit to what we were talking about in the beginning. Stephen Greer, he's the director of the Disclosure Project. His quote or response to this is that it's unfortunate that Stephen Hawking has added his voice to a growing chorus of xenophobia and fear regarding what he terms as aliens. He's kind of said, any interstellar civilization would possess such technologies that the meager resources of Earth would be unneeded. Do you agree or disagree, Robert?
Well, a little of both. As far as the resources, well, the aliens are not looking for our technology; they're looking for our DNA. And to reinforce their DNA, as we just talked about before, about homogenization, all that good stuff amongst advanced civilizations and ethnic groups, weakening the genetic code of that group. And so I guess what I'm seeing is they've come here to strengthen their genetic code and interbreed with humans to actually create a different species, but they're both human and alien. And I sometimes wonder about the success of that. When they're little kids, the little alien children or whatever you want to call them seem to be thriving and live pretty well and grow to be older. But then you don't know what happens down the line when they reach 30 and 40 and 50 years old.
Sure.
There could be something wrong with the way they're doing things. That their genetic engineering isn't working the way they thought it should work, and that these kids don't really survive beyond, say, age 30.
Now, do you think it? And he says, kind of chastises Hawking, says he was stirring the warmongering fear pot. I mean, do you? Which I mean, my personal opinion, I think he's going a little, maybe a little too far. I think my personal opinion, I think Hawking's saying, kind of like Jordan said in the beginning, don't bring them here if they're not already here. Yeah. Of course, I think they're already here, but Hawking may not know that. But do you think that's kind of the?
Well, no. Stephen Greer's got the complete opposite view of everybody else and a lot of other people, and he believes that these aliens are all kind and benevolent, and they're here to help the human race. And that all these abductions are orchestrated effort by the government to create the idea of evil aliens.
Well, he said, he also says to date, no place on Earth has been invaded or attacked or colonized. But I'm with you on that. I don't think they have to. Yeah. They can just kind of take what they want.
Yeah. Well, as far as human resources, yes, and
they have been taking what they want. Yeah.
Right, and they can do that on a daily basis, a weekly basis, whatever they want to do. And they have, according to what these abductees are saying, that the aliens do have deep underground bases right under our noses and under the ocean and in different mountain areas in the U.S. and overseas.
Now, going back away from this a little bit, now we've had several guests, including Joe Montaldo and cannot think of the other person, but they've talked about mill labs, which essentially, and you've probably heard about this before, that the military is actually doing a lot of the abducting, that is attributed to these aliens. Do you think what is your opinion on that? Do you think that mill labs exist, or that it's more of it's all aliens doing the abducting?
I don't see. I know when I spend giving the government too much credit is what I say.
Sure.
I don't. All the time I spent in the Air Force, I don't see how they would even begin to do something like that.
Yeah.
Unless, what I see is that, from what I'm hearing and seeing, is that these aliens are great at masquerading themselves and cloaking and creating false memories. One abductee just said that, if I remember this right, she said that conversation with one of these aliens. She said, that your military insignia is wrong. It was on his shoulders.
Uh-huh.
She said, your insignia is wrong. So she said that this insignia changed right in front of her so that it was correct. And so that's pretty good. That means that they can sit there and literally change reality in front of you.
And so is that going by, I guess, mental? Do you think most of that's in there? And I don't want to take what I'm saying wrong, but most of what they're seeing is perhaps broadcast to them mentally.
Sure.
That they're not
right.
They're seeing everything wrong.
They're getting projected images thrown at them, and they don't know how to. It's sort of like it's a mind control. They don't know how to snap themselves out of that and jolt their brain so that it stops seeing what they want their brain to see.
Okay, I think I see what you're saying.
I've heard people say that before, that it's almost like they bend the light in front of them to make your brain perceive whatever it is, like an illusion.
They're projecting an image into your brain.
Yeah. And I've heard people say that they see kids in their house when it's an alien abduction. It's like children
and they don't have to do that through your eyes. They can telepathically, they can project anything they want into your brain and get you to see what they think you should see.
And Truth Forever on the chat room said that those are not aliens but humanoid aliens. Or I'm sorry, those are not military but humanoid aliens.
Right.
So now, and do you think?
And the aliens can make themselves look very humanoid, or like an owl or a deer.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard deer. All these screening memories and all these different images are projected into the mind of the abductee.
Yeah, I know one of the movies that just came out that was, of course, total hoax. Totally not true. But they were pulling from this. The Fourth Kind. I think they had a white owl. And one of the previews, I haven't seen it yet. I heard it was really bad, but they had a white owl that everybody would see.
The movie, I saw it. I would rate it a C.
Okay.
At best, it has a lot of things missing out of it. I've never heard of Sumerian symbols involved in abduction cases. I've never heard of a father abductee or a husband killing his wife and his kids. Things like that I'd never heard of.
Killing his wife and kids because he was abducted, or?
Yeah, well, because he was going crazy because of all these abductions.
Oh, I haven't heard of that either.
Well, they put a lot of things for drama.
Oh, of course.
I've never heard of or ever read about or seen or encountered.
And to some degree, I don't understand that because, I mean, a lot of the stories I've heard from people that have been abducted that are living this life as being someone that's constantly abducted, they really don't have to add too much to the story from what they. I mean, if you look at Travis Walton, his story, and of course they added stuff to that, but I mean, even just what he says happened, was enough where they didn't have to add anything. But Hollywood thinks they know better, so.
Yeah, well, Travis Walton didn't play the victim. He fought back.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
They don't like. My impression is they don't like you when you fight back.
Well, that's something else. And going back, you were saying reading email earlier. Kind of an argument that was taking place there, and I've seen other places. Is there a way to stop what's happening to you? Some people say no, you can't stop them. If you fight back, it makes it worse. So you just kind of lay down and let them do what they need to do, and then they'll return you back. And others say, well, of course, if you fight back, they will stop. Is there a way to stop this?
Well, some people say they have stopped them. I've talked to any number of people who say they, but it's a matter of willpower. It's a matter of not accepting any part of what's happening to you. You can't accept any part of it, not even a little bit. Even if you think it makes you better, you can't accept it. You have to be able to reject everything, and you have to be able to find out where the implants are in your body and try to get rid of them.
Yeah.
But what about the people who say that the people who are the ones that reject they get more violent with them?
They do. They can make you suffer a lot. But according to what Daryl Sims says, he went through the same thing when he was 17, and they put him through hell. But he said he finally was able to break away from them.
See, now we've had someone else on the show, Manuel Navarrete. I hope I'm saying the last name right, and he knows that I say it wrong all the time. But and I try my best. But he said, and he's dealing with this now, where he was abducted while he was since he was a kid. He's growing up now. He's got his own son, and now they're abducting him. His son, and and a couple of people got angry because he said, he told not to fight back, because it would make it worse. And they're saying, well, why aren't you protecting your son? And his argument is, there's nothing I can do to protect them. They'll take him no matter what, or the fact that I can't move when they come,
They can find out. The only way they can track where the son is to have an implant.
Uh-huh.
That's the only way they can do it. They can't. If you don't have the implant, they can't find you.
Okay, so now I've heard someone else say that they didn't need the implant, and of course, there's another researcher, of course. He said that they were tracking them by the DNA, using something, with their blood. and of course,
I
advanced
don't know.
technology.
Did he tell you how that worked?
I think I asked, and I don't think he gave that. I can't remember the explanation. If I'll track back into the show to see which one that was, and if anybody out there remembers exactly how that works, I will email you that.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, because that sounds very strange.
Yeah, I think we had a few people say
I know that once the implants are removed, a lot of the abductees report that they are completely left alone.
Sure, and I think this same researcher had said that it was that the implants were, and they go back into the mill lab, that our military would use implants to track because that's our technology, whereas the aliens have a more of an advanced technology in themselves. That would, that they could track it without, using the use of implants.
I don't see how that military thing would work.
Sure.
If you drove up in the van up to the house, they'd see you.
Uh-huh.
You can't disguise that. If you come over on a helicopter, they're going to see that.
Yeah.
I don't see how this military thing would work. You couldn't surprise anybody.
I think people give our government way too much credit.
Oh, I agree with that one.
Like, I don't think we're that smart.
And unless, of course, it was this secret organization in the military that has much more advanced technology, and that's giving the credit, So, yeah, well, I'm just saying.
Well, even if they have the advanced technology, they still can't go through walls and windows.
Yet.
And they just can't, hover over the top of your house stationary and then come through the top of the roof or go through a window.
Of course.
Which is what is reported. These aliens reportedly do.
And I'm playing mostly devil's advocate because I know what you're saying. It's like so many different things that it's like if you remove everything that isn't it, whatever you're left with, however improbable has to be the truth.
Okay, Sherlock.
Yes, I watched that movie the other day. I'm sorry. All right, well, I'm sorry. We're running out of time, Robert. But it has been great talking with you. We'll keep in touch. As always, I enjoy reading your emails and everything like that. So.
Okay. Well, it's great talking to you.
Thank you, Robert.
Now, just so everybody knows, we do have your book online on our webpage. It goes directly to your page where they can buy the book. I think including a signed copy of the book from your website. Is that correct?
Right. Yes.
And it's a great book. I read it. I'd highly recommend it for anybody interested in the topic, and I also link up to your website as well. So, but thank you very much for coming on with us. It's been a lot of fun.
All right. Thank you, Nick, and everybody else.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I like how Nick uses movie quotes to justify his intelligence.
Well, thank you.
I know.
I mean, it's not even a movie quote. It's actually it's from the book.
That's like my sister.
Some of us read.
Whatever.
Just because you can't read.
Listen, my sister we were in church and we were praying for something, and in her prayer she says, "Lord, with great power comes great responsibility." And I was like, "That's Spider-Man." Like, my sister just prayed Spider-Man in a prayer.
I haven't went that far yet.
I don't know.
Well, Jordan,
they come out of you like just a matter of course. I don't know that you're aware that half the time.
And I don't think in our culture it is a very big, part of it. I mean, it's so I've heard people do it many times, and I know I probably do it a lot. So, but I read so much. Anyways, I love Sherlock Holmes. So, and actually, where did I hear that the other day?
Well, if you just watched the movie.
I did just watch the movie. There was something else that quoted that too.
Jordan, when are you coming back?
I'll be back next week.
Okay.
Don't worry, Lola.
Sometime.
She's gonna kick me out. Well, Jordan, left a little early from the interview because of there's a couple things we have to take care of. First off, the prison trip. We haven't got to talk about that today.
That's right. Excuse me.
Well, we have 3 open slots now, so.
I got the black lung, Pop.
Oh, God, don't. That's not even funny.
Oh, I'm joking. That wasn't even around coal today. It just rocked us.
Well, that'll do it.
I got the white lung.
All right, go ahead.
All right, June 30th. That is a Wednesday. We got the pen trip, $65 per ticket. You can get it at whispersradio.com. Go to the Ghost Hunt section at the top of the page to get your ticket. We have Demonologist Dwayne Claude is coming from New York to give a demonology presentation and take a group around. Herb Street is coming to teach his Herb Street method in person to anybody that wants to come. Sherry Brake, who is a regular on the show and also does the pen tours and local tours, she will be there. She'll probably be with Lola. So.
Well, no, it's more like Lola will be with her.
Lola's
She won't be
probably
able to
gonna
get
with
rid
her.
of me.
And we're still working on T-shirt designs. So if you still haven't turned in your T-shirt design and you think you want one or want to make one, send it in. We'll put it up for a vote and see what happens.
Yep. And like I said, somebody had to cancel 3 spots today, so we do have 3 more open.
Really?
Yes. Well, it's physical reasons, so it's unfortunate. Going to miss them, but that's what it is.
That's sad.
I know, and I told them to, if the situation changes, just let me know.
Yeah.
But that's it. So.
We'll definitely get there now. If you have any questions, email us whispers1600@gmail.com, and that way we can answer any questions or concerns you have. I know Nick said he was going to look up some hotels to get some hotel information.
Yeah, I need to get that on soon.
Those of you traveling, maybe see if we can get some kind of discount for those of you traveling long distances.
Yeah. There was something else have to rave about my favorite show.
Jordan, this is the most amazing. We got to watch this. Go ahead.
Are you talking about Lost or Ghost Adventures?
No.
She doesn't like Ghost Adventures.
No. Destination Truth.
Jeez.
Okay, don't talk about. I didn't get to watch last week, so don't.
Well, and that's okay. Tonight is a rerun. Tonight is the Richard centric one. Next week it's called The Candidate, but I don't know yet who it's going to be about.
Oh my God.
And I heard, and this is just a teaser kind of thing, that one of the main people die.
Dun dun dun.
I think it's Jen. I think it's Jen. Because I read an interview before the season started with the chick that plays Sun.
Yeah.
And she said, yes, they would get reunited, but it would be very short-lived and it would be very sad.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've got a feeling it's Jen.
See, I'm not emotionally attached to Jen, so.
I just think he's cute.
You're emotionally attached to Sawyer, aren't
but and the other so we were trying to figure out, okay, out of the candidates, who is still alive? Jack, Sun, and Jen, but you got to combine those two. Hurley, Saeed.
See, I think it might be Saeed's got to have an episode coming up here soon.
Well, he did not too long ago.
Did he?
But the thing is, I think Saeed's humanity is returning.
Oh yeah. Well, don't give me any hints.
Wait a second.
Well, no, I'm
here.
not giving you hints.
Okay.
I think his humanity may be returning, and so it will be safe then for him to pass.
I hope it's Jack. I hope Jack gets the island.
Only because I don't want him back in the United States.
He is just the whiniest, pathetic thing when he's not on that island, and it kills me.
But what was the one thing that has been running through 5.5 years? Jack always had to be in control. Yeah. In the last several weeks, Jack it's been killing him, but he's been giving up that control. And, I got a feeling of that. But Destination Truth.
Okay, tell us.
It is the Season 3 premiere. They go to a haunted forest in Romania. Ooh. And there's a perfectly round circle in the middle of the forest where nothing will grow. So they go there, and all the locals are telling them, don't go there. If you go in, you won't come out. Lights have been seen, voices heard, shadows move about, people get physically ill, they vomit, they pass out. People have actually gone in and never come out.
Oh, wow.
So they go in there, and they're seeing all these lights, but when they put the IR on, the infrared, there isn't a heat source.
Oh.
And yet these lights are bouncing around in the tree line and things. So then they go in the middle of this glade, and the first one in is the main guy, and on the camera at base camp they see lights behind him. dancing kind of just over his shoulder. He turns around. There's nothing there.
Like lights? Do you mean like some of those like flashlights in the distance, or you mean like lightning bug lights? Or
no,
what?
they kind of look like torches.
Okay.
Off in the like little yeah. And so he turns the IR on him, and there's nothing there, but they've got it on camera. So then they send the next guy in, who is just a cameraman. He is not really involved with any of the paranormal stuff or anything. He's sitting there, and at base they're watching the camera that's filming him, and all of a sudden you see this white blur, and he's gone. So they go running in there, and they find him yards away in a state of shock. And when they finally get him up, he's going, "Oh, I just itch all over." And somebody from TAPS told him, "Well, that happens when a spirit passes through you." People have been known to say it's like this deep itch. And then he's going, "My arm." And it was fall, so they had on really heavy jackets and all this kind of stuff. They pull up the sleeve of his jacket and shirt, and there are claw marks.
No way.
And not the kind like if you claw over material. These were like cuts in his arm. And and then they get back to base camp, and the medic starts just inexplicably throwing up. So they got the hell out of Dodge, and they go back, and he said when he just kind of like disappeared, it was like this blast of wind just came full force at him and hit him and went up.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it was one of the that show. They always get results. All these other shows don't.
I hope that it doesn't come out that show is faked, because I think your whole world will end.
Oh, it will. I will stop all of this. I will. I will be shat.
Let me tell you, there's an episode of Ghost Hunters. Man, it's been a while. This is one of the earlier seasons.
Let's see if he says the same exact one I said.
Did you say it already?
No, go
ahead.
Well,
go ahead, and I'll see if it's the same one.
Well, it's probably the same one. I just wasn't listening to you if you said it.
No, we weren't talking earlier.
No, we were off the air.
Where the cameraman,
is
off to the side. All of a sudden, you just see like the box he's holding fly up in the air and smack him right in the face, and he drops to the ground.
Yeah,
that's the one I was talking about.
Yeah,
his name was Josh Gates. I looked at it was Josh Gates. We were thinking John.
Yeah.
I guess is John the. I can't remember either.
I don't either. But I just that show, and then they were down right outside of Cancun. Well, several hours outside of Cancun.
Yeah.
At the Mayan ruins, looking for this evil little animal-like thingy. But I told them.
Or Chupacabra?
No, they weren't there. I know what place you're talking about. This was further inland. And but it was. Yeah, they didn't really find any evidence of that, but there were some strange things happening. But Linda and I are thinking about perhaps going to Cancun, and so one of the things I would like to do is an investigation.
It's the ALUX.
Yeah, ALO.
Okay, yeah, I
or
can see
something
that.
like that.
That's cool.
So, I want to talk to Joe or somebody to see if they know some paranormal investigators down there that we could hook up with.
Joe Montaldo?
Yeah, when we're down there.
He knows everybody.
I know. That's what I thought.
I was actually just talking to him. I said, we'll have to get you on the show to talk about Mill Labs, because that's his topic. So I will try to maybe see if he was available next couple of weeks.
Okay.
You can grill him about.
Well, it's just, if we manage to go, we'd like to do something besides just what you always party, Although
you got the time and the money, but you're not allowed to miss Whispers.
NY Lily, I'm not sure what you mean.
Oh, I'll call in and do a show from the Mayan ruins.
There you go. That would be sweet.
Yeah, all of a sudden, dead silence. Oh my God, Lola and her sister are gone. Just that rich guy I met in the afternoon at the bar.
And NY Lily on the chat room, she said, is this place called the Devil's Circle or something like that? I'm not exactly sure.
Oh, in Romania?
In Romania. I looked that up, actually. It's called the, and I'm going to butcher this name again. I've butchered names all day, though. Hoi Baksu Forest.
It's
Baku?
Yeah.
Okay, Hoi Baku Forest.
Yep. And they actually did soil samples. And there's absolutely no difference in the soil inside the circle as opposed to inside the tree line.
Like it wasn't like salted or anything like that?
Because right away Linda says, well, maybe it's like a magnetic energy thing. Well, the locals consider it to be like a portal to hell, a gateway. So
Lola, we need to find. Remember, we had that the filmmaker on that did the documentary on vampires.
Ooh, yeah.
Pennsylvania. You would love that.
Were you not there that day?
That was one of the ones I missed.
I'd bring him back just to go back over again because you would love that conversation.
Okay.
Stories. I mean, people are like, before a viewing to a funeral, they're like stabbing the body and doing a vampire ritual and.
I think I've seen clips of the documentary.
Oh yeah.
I think. Well, listen, guys, it's been sweet. It's been fun.
It ain't been real fun, so we'll see you next week.
No.
All right, next week back in the studio. Yeah, don't forget, buy your tickets to the Penn trip.
Yes. Looking forward to it.
It's on the website under Ghost Hunt.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, until next week, everybody, don't be afraid, only believe.